Welcome, everybody. Thanks for coming. I am apologizing once again for inundating you with 3 different emails today, all of which basically included the same information with minor deviations. So I do apologize. Thanks for joining us. For those of you who don't know me, I am Lori Cohen. I am one of the counselors here at the high school, and I am also the coordinator of the department. Joining me tonight, I also have Dr. Trandor and Mr. DePiro, 2 of our 6 counselors.
Hi, everyone.
Hey, guys.
So, sorry, I'm going to do the presentation. It's probably 45 minutes to an hour, depending on how quickly I talk and how many questions there are. If you have questions, feel free to write them in the question and answer part, and Dr. Trandor and Mr. DePiro will be answering them as I'm presenting. This recording will be available online, and we will also have the slides posted. So if you have to leave early or if you want to review it, that's fine. In addition, Mr. DePiro, Dr. Trandor, and Mr. Bryant's students saw the student variation of this today during intervention time. And my students, Mrs. Vargas and Mrs. Martin's students, are going to be getting their presentations tomorrow during intervention. So by the end of tomorrow afternoon, all students hopefully will have heard this presentation as parents. So if you don't know who your counselor is, that's important that your kids know that for sure. Here is the alphabetical breakdown by last name, so you can find out who your counselor is. So tonight's agenda is basically to go over the senior timeline, Naviance, how to do common application, the FERPA, and all of this will make sense as we go along, the actual application process itself, and we'll touch on financial aid and some scholarships, and with some information about some upcoming nights as well. So first of all, at this point in students' process, hopefully by now they have a rough idea of schools that they are going to be applying to. Make sure you get a system that works for you. We recommend spreadsheets, folders. This is a process that you really need to be organized and focused on. So this is where parents, you may come into play. If this is not your students' strengths, you may want to help them organize this, get them motivated, get them moving. There are a lot of different deadlines, a lot of moving parts, a lot of things that have to be submitted. So it's really critical that you keep track of all of this in some way that is easy to reference and to refer to. Students, and we do stress this, you need to focus on your grades and your attendance. This is not over. Senior year does count, as much as kids don't like to believe that. It does count. We send in the fall, when kids are applying, a list of their senior courses. If a student drops a class after transcripts have been sent, we need to send an updated course list with what they are now taking and what they have dropped. In addition, many schools are looking for grades to be sent to them in the middle of the senior year. Some are looking for first marking period, others are looking for the first semester grades. So while it might be tempting to jump into senioritis, encourage your students not to, and we will be working on that as well. Attend college representative visits. I did write virtual. Most of them have been virtual, although more and more are coming in person. For those of you who don't know what that is, we have college representatives that come to visit the high school to talk to students, and I'll talk a little bit about that later on. Visit campuses virtually if you can. If you can't, and you can get to campus, get there in person, attend information sessions and tours. Don't just visit the campus on your own, but rather sign up and schedule visits. Students should be working on cleaning up their social media. Obviously, a large school like Pittsburgh or Penn State is not going to go and check student social media, but some of the smaller colleges may be. And so they just want to make sure that they are not having anything on there that's inappropriate, and that includes red Solo cups in the hands, haze of smoke around them. That does not include foul language, into visible inappropriateness. So if your kids have that on there, please encourage them to move that along quickly. That's kind of important to do. Also, you should finalize, hold on one second. Finalize your list of colleges. Most students apply to between 4 and 8 as an average. We always have kids apply to one school only. They know where they want to go. They know they stand a good solid chance of being accepted. They apply, they're accepted, they're done. We have other kids that apply to 17 to 20 schools. That's a large number of schools, considering that college applications cost anywhere from $50 to $75 to $100. So really make sure you're not applying to too many. It's a lot of effort and work. You want to make sure your range of colleges that you're applying to covers schools that are a little more of a reach to get into, middle ground, and then schools that are a little bit easier to get into. And Naviance can help you determine that. If you took the SATs, you need to arrange to send them to colleges. We do not send them ourselves. So you have to either upload the scores, or if the colleges will allow you to, or go onto College Board to the official site and send official score reports. Naviance, your students should be very familiar with Naviance, and we're going to spend a good part of the night tonight teaching you how to look at Naviance and so forth. But this is where they're going to request transcripts, they're going to request letters of recommendation, and they're going to track their transcripts. And finally, if your student is a student athlete and they want to play Division I or II in college, they need to register at the NCAA site at eligibilitycenter.org. You'll need to send SAT scores as well as a transcript to that. And if you are a student who's looking at D1 or D2 schools, please reach out to your counselors and we can make sure that everything's on track and you're doing what you need to be doing. Okay, why is my screen not going to the next screen? Sorry, here we go. Okay, so I talked about college representative visits. Many college reps come to Cheltenham. The person who comes represents the college, but he or she is also often the one who is actually reviewing and making decisions about the students. So this is a good idea for your student to get some face-to-face time or computer screen to computer screen time to get them to know them. It's nice to have a name with a face. Those schools are available in Naviance and it is being updated sometimes almost daily. So keep checking, making sure that you are looking to see if new schools have added. We ask students to click onto Naviance and register. It's pretty easy to do. They just have to click on the schools, click visit school and sign up. Double check with the teacher, especially with block scheduling. Classes are 82 minutes. They want to make sure they're not going to be missing too much time. So double check that with the teacher. Have your student prepare questions to ask the rep. And you don't want to ask questions that are common to information you can find on the website. So saying how many students attend your school, that's something that you should be able to look up. But instead asking a question like, can you tell me a little bit more about your study abroad opportunities? Or what kind of internships do students in this field get at your college? Some questions that show them that you're being very thoughtful and deliberate about your college choices. So applying to college, as I mentioned, it's kind of different, a little bit different for every school, has different deadlines, different numbers of recommendations they require, different types of essays. So make sure you know exactly what each school is required and looking for. If it says optional, our recommendation as a counseling department is to do it. So optional, kids, if you're on here listening, optional means do it. It's important that you remember that. Be aware of deadlines. If a college has a deadline, it's not the old Cheltenham deadline where you can go and talk to a teacher or there's no late policy, but rather if there's a deadline that all applications must be received by 11:59, if you send that application at 12:01, it's not going to be received and reviewed in the same way as everybody else from the school. Keep in mind that as you are submitting applications, the majority of people apply online, and sometimes as deadlines approach, portals start to run a lot more slowly. For instance, Penn State is a prime example of this. Their deadline is typically the end of November. Starting usually on the 29th of November, it starts to run really slowly. And by the 30th of November at about 11 o'clock at night, sometimes it crashes, sometimes it doesn't go. And unfortunately, if the system crashes and on you and you didn't get into it, that's your problem, not Penn State's problem. So definitely don't wait till the last literal second to submit applications online. So the first part of the process is your students' applications. They are submitted, the majority of them are submitted online. That's the student's responsibility. You do not do that through Naviance. You do not do that through the counselors. Instead, you are using things like the college websites have the applications. There's always a big button that says apply now, apply here. Many schools subscribe to what's called the Common Application, and some of them are also subscribing to Coalition. Common Application is by far the most popular one. That is a main application portal where there are hundreds of colleges that you can apply to through the Common Application. So students only have to fill out their demographic data, their information one time. They may have to upload different essays for different colleges, but it's a much easier and much more streamlined process. So if colleges are on Common Application, absolutely use that structure. Work on the essays. Hopefully most of you did an essay in 11th grade and it just needed to be retweaked or touched up. If you are currently in English this semester, I believe your teachers should all be working on that now. If you don't have English 12 until senior year, please reach out to your English teacher who you can find their name on PowerSchool. If you want help, they will be glad to meet with you during intervention time, after school, if they're available and you're available, but they will be glad to work with you and do some revision and work even though you've never met them. So please reach out to them and do that. Moving forward, we're going to hopefully move the college essay into 11th grade so that all students have a very solid essay, even if they don't have English 12 until second semester. SAT scores, that's the responsibility of students to send. We do not send them through Cheltenham. That's your job. So there's another piece of the application. So then students send the application. 2 students send SAT scores. Now, many schools are still SAT optional this year. So you may choose to do that. Then you wouldn't need to upload your SATs. If, however, you're going to be sending SAT scores, more and more colleges are moving towards self-reporting of SATs. So you can just type in your scores yourselves. And then once you've been accepted and decide to attend, they will ask that you send them directly. But if the colleges require an official score report, you will need to go onto the College Board site and pay for them. I think might be up to $12, $12.50 now, to send a score report to each college. If you are still planning on taking an SAT in the fall, October and November, before the SAT, you can go on to your College Board account and put in up to 4 colleges, and those 4 colleges will receive, you can send the scores for free. So as seniors, we don't always recommend that for juniors because you're not sure where you're applying, but by now you should have an idea of schools you're applying to. So this would be an advantage. You can take up to 4 score reports sent for free. So I would absolutely encourage you to do that. And then the final piece of the application process is using Naviance to request transcripts and recommendations. So applications and the fees that go along with it, SAT scores are students' responsibility. Students' responsibility to enter this information on Naviance, and then the school and the teachers will send using Naviance, and we're going to get into that. But first, I just want to go over the different options for admissions. The first is called rolling admissions. This is where applications are accepted throughout the year. Decisions are made throughout the cycle. At some points, it's 4 to 6 weeks after the application has been fully received. Sometimes, like in previous years, we've seen examples of University of Pittsburgh getting decisions out to students in 2 weeks. So the advantage to a rolling admissions is the earlier you apply to a school, the earlier you're going to get a decision. And that's always really nice to have your first college acceptance by October or November. So absolutely encourage your students, if their schools are on a rolling plan, to apply as soon as possible. We say by the absolute latest, Halloween, preferably end of September, but we know that's not always realistic with start back to school and activities and essays and all that, but definitely do that. The next one is the regular decision. That means the college has set an application deadline. Typically it's end of December, January-ish. They will not even begin to look at an application until after that deadline. So you can apply to that school in September, or you can apply to that school 1 minute before the deadline, and you'll be reviewed equally. And everybody will receive their admissions decision on a certain date. So if you have a regular decision date, you can wait to do that one until the deadline, although again, don't push it by getting too close. Then we have some early action and early decision. Early action typically has a date that is set usually mid-October to beginning of November. If you apply by that decision, you're going to receive by that date, you'll receive a decision often by mid to end of December. But you do not have to commit to the college or make any decisions at that point. So if any school offers an early action option, we 100% encourage you to use that deadline. Some schools tie in their scholarship money with early action. For instance, University of Maryland, if you don't apply by a certain date, which is the early action date, you're not eligible for scholarships. I'm going to skip restricted early action. Well, no, I'm not actually. Some schools have gone to restricted early action. Same concept, you apply early, you get your decision. You don't need to make a decision, but you cannot apply to another school under early decision or early action. So you have to be aware of that. Not many schools do offer that option. And then finally, there's an early decision option. This is the same date concept as early action. You apply by a certain date, you get an answer, usually before end of December. However, this is a binding agreement between your student and the school. And what you are saying when you apply early decision is, if you are accepted, you will withdraw all your other applications and commit to attending at their college. I, as the counselor, have to sign that. You, as the parent, have to sign that. And the student has to sign it, saying that you're going to follow those protocols. Excuse me. Now, if you break that decision, you get accepted early decision, and then you say you're not coming, obviously there are really no legal ramifications. They're not going to arrest you. They're not going to fine you. But please be aware that they do communicate with other colleges, and they do frown upon students breaking an early decision agreement. So if you're not sure if you're ready to commit to that, please don't use early decision. Early decision should be used by students who fall in love with a school. They know that's exactly where they want to be. That's where they can picture themselves. Also, sometimes early decision schools can be, it's a little less competitive earlier in the, excuse me, I'm so sorry, earlier in the process. So if you apply early decision, you stand a better chance of being accepted than if you did regular decision. Give me a second. So that's something that you want to consider and talk to your counselor about. We want to make sure that you're doing this for the right reasons. Most of the very competitive schools, the Ivy Leagues, the super competitive small private schools, have early decision deadlines. So what should the students be responsible for? I don't know if you noticed, but in the first 2 emails I sent you, I mentioned a DocuSign document. We realized that that was not working, checked it out. The district has not resubscribed to DocuSign since we are now in person. So my 3rd email was an email that included a PDF of a release of records form. This release of records form needs to be signed by you, the parent, unless your student is 18 years old, and then they can sign it. But we cannot release a transcript without your permission. So that's what the release of records form is for. It's in your email, so check for it. Just print it out, have your child sign it, and have them drop it off in the counselor's office. They cannot request a transcript until that release of records is on file in our office. So I would encourage you to do that tonight and have them bring it back in tomorrow. Students need to be responsible for submitting the application to the college, pay for the application unless they have fee waivers, submit their essays, write their essays, submit a resume if they decide to. That's the student's responsibility. Students need to go onto Naviance, and if they're using Common Application, and I'm going to go through what all of this means, so this doesn't make sense yet, but it should by the end of our night. Again, arrange for official score reports for college to be sent by College Board or ACT if needed. If a college needs letters of recommendation, they are requested through Naviance and transcripts. So as you can see, 1, 2, 3 of these items are all tied into Naviance. So it's really important that your students are familiar with Naviance and feel comfortable using it so they can do these steps. So If you don't know what Naviance is, it is a web-based data source that we use for high school, career, and college planning. And we also use it to facilitate the application process. So all of the data that you see in Naviance is specific to Cheltenham's graduates. It goes back, I think we're currently up to maybe 2012, I think. So any data you see there is current, are those students. And this is where it's important that you students understand how to use it. Otherwise, transcripts will not be sent. And if a transcript isn't sent, colleges won't be able to make a decision on their application. So Naviance, they access it through the high school site. Click on students, click on Naviance. The login information will be 22, their first initial and their last name, so 22 L. Cohen. The password will have to be reset. So if they haven't done that already, there's a button that says reset password or forgot password or retrieve password. Click on that and reset it. If that does not work, you can reach out to your counselor and we can help you. So one of the things that Naviance has, and this can help you tremendously in terms of looking at what your college, many colleges you have on your list, what the chances of getting accepted. They're called Scattergrams. And this is available for every school. And keep in mind, this is only relative to Cheltenham High School graduates. So this is not the whole country. This is not the state. This is just our district. So as you can see, your student will be in the little blue circle, the little face. This is a college that average GPA is, and these are weighted GPAs, so it'll be like a 4.2 and looks like just under 1260, something like that. So this student is above that range, and you can see all the check marks mean these are all students over the years that have been accepted. Red X's means these are students who have applied who have not been accepted. And I believe the blue dots are waitlisted. So as you can see on this scattergram, your child stands a very good chance of being accepted to this college. They are above the SAT average. They are slightly below the SAT, but they are in that range of people who have been accepted. Another way, if you are not a visual learner, but you rather see it in a chart like this, you can click on something called Compare Me. That's under colleges I'm applying to. You can see this button that says Compare Me, and this is what it will do. This will put your student's name, their GPA, their SAT score. Here are the colleges they are interested in. You can see the green check next to the GPA for Montco. The average GPA for Montgomery County Community College from Cheltenham students is a 2.38. It is green because Joe Cheltenham's GPA is higher than a 2.38. You can see Temple, the average GPA is a 3.97. There is a red X because Joe's GPA is lower than Temple's average. And it's the same concept for the SAT scores. Okay, so if you have not handed in your release of records form, when you go on to colleges I'm applying to, you're going to get this yellow message that says your parent guardian has not given you consent for you to request transcripts. Contact your counseling office if you think this is a mistake. And we are asking for a day's notice turnaround for when your student hands it in to when this is available. So this student cannot request transcripts yet. This student, notice down here, this is the second one, doesn't have this yellow line, and there is a button here that says request transcripts. That student can now go on and request transcripts. So if under colleges I'm applying to, you see this yellow line, that means that that form has not been handed in. They can't request us to send transcripts without your permission. Okay. So Common App, if you're using Common App and Naviance have a relationship together where they interface together. You basically have to give them permission to communicate. And by doing that, you have to log on to Common App and go through some steps there. If you don't do this, you're going to see this red line here, which is over here, It looks like you are not currently able to apply to Common App schools. Match your Common App account. In order to match it, you need to go through some things in Common App. You need to first add colleges to your Common App list. You need to click on the FERPA agreement. That is the federal agreement giving that the colleges use to ask us to connect with Naviance and to release your transcripts. And then you have to come back onto Naviance and match your accounts. Once you do that, you will be able to request transcripts. Your students will have received and did receive in one of the emails a step-by-step list for how to do this. Tells you exactly how. If you follow down the steps, it's very simple. If they are confused and lost on this, have them bring their laptops into their counselor during lunch or during intervention time, and we can work with them to help them match it. Okay. All right, so where do we add colleges in Naviance? You're going to click on colleges I'm applying to, and there's a big red circle with a plus sign. You're going to add colleges from there. If you've not used Naviance before, and you've added colleges and colleges I'm thinking about, there's a way in colleges I'm thinking about to move them all to I'm applying to, but adding them here. If you are using Common App, once you match your Common App with your Naviance, it will populate in the Naviance colleges I'm applying to section. Okay. Just because colleges are added in Naviance and colleges I'm applying to, that does not mean students have requested transcripts. So once they get a colleges in colleges I'm applying to, they have to now request the transcript. So in colleges I'm applying to, once they have completed the parent form, they're going to hit the button that says request transcripts. It's going to ask you what type of transcript are you requesting. Make sure you select initial. Where are you sending it? You're going to do this drop-down menu, and all of the colleges that you've put into colleges I'm applying to will appear here. You can select multiple ones at a time and then request and finish. So it's pretty easy. Request transcripts, initial, select the college, and request it. Once you do that, then the counselor will get notification that you have requested the transcript, and it will then allow us to process it and send it, upload it and send it to the colleges. Okay. So teacher recommendations are also done through Naviance. You want to determine how many letters of colleges will accept. And on Naviance, that is also listed. So it will show you the minimum and maximum. Some colleges don't want any, so it will say 0, and it won't even allow teachers to send to that college. First thing students should do before they request it in Naviance is speak to the teacher directly. Either stop by their classroom or send them an email and ask them if they would be willing to write it. Most students select teachers who they had in 11th grade. However, with COVID, we understand that you may not have built such a relationship with those teachers. So if you go back to 9th or 10th grade, colleges are being very understanding with that. So you want to, usually it's 2 to 3. You want to make sure it's a teacher that you've had in high school. Do not request the teachers via Common App. There is a section on Common App where it says, do you want to request teachers here? It does say if you are using Naviance, do not do that. But some kids don't read that part, and then that messes everything up, and it takes quite a while for Naviance and Common App to fix that. So please don't request teachers through Common App. There are several teachers who students had last year who are not with us any longer as teachers. They are still with us. That didn't come out right. Ms. Sheridan and Ms. Shapiro, I know, have both provided their private email addresses, and they are available for you to select on Naviance as well. We do ask that you allow teachers 2 weeks notice to send the recommendations. Remember, teachers are creating lesson plans, they are grading, they are having other responsibilities. So please do not go to them and say, hey, can you write me a letter recommendation? By the way, it's due tomorrow. Teachers put a lot of time and effort and energy into your letters, and doing that is not going to allow them that, and it's not going to make them very happy. I will also say that There are some teachers who get asked to write maybe 20, 25 letters of recommendation a year. They're typically your 11th grade teachers. So just think for a moment if you would like to be the teacher's first or second letter of recommendation or their 20th letter of recommendation. So clearly the teacher is still going to have more energy and be excited and be ready to write the letter earlier in the season than if they have to write their 25th letter of recommendation. So it's always better to ask on the early side. And finally, please, students, and we will stress this with them, follow up with these teachers. They do spend hours sometimes writing these letters, and then they never hear back from the students. So make sure to acknowledge them, send them a thank you letter, a note, and let them know in the spring what you've decided to attend. So how do you request a letter of recommendation? Again, after you have spoken to the teacher in person, you're going to go to colleges, apply to college. You're going to click on letters of recommendation. You're going to, who would you like to write this recommendation? You're going to click on this drop down and it will be every teacher in Cheltenham School District. Pick the teacher you want. It says choose specific colleges or all current and future colleges. Most students pick all current and future colleges. However, once in a while, you want a certain teacher for a certain college only, then you could choose specific, but otherwise do all current and future. A personal note, sometimes teachers are going to want you to answer questions. Sometimes they're going to want you to provide them information. Make sure you do that. If not, just write a quick note. Hey, thanks for writing my letter of recommendation. I really appreciate it. And then submit the request. And again, they will then get a notification from Naviance that you have requested a letter from them. All right. So in addition to teacher recommendations, some colleges require counselor recommendations. These two should not be interchanged. If there are teacher recommendations, it should not come from the counselor because colleges are looking for specific information about your student, you as a student in the classroom. If they're looking for a counselor recommendation, they're looking for more information that's more overarching, like a well-rounded, talks about personality. We'll talk about any struggles or issues you've had over the last 4 years. Not all colleges are requiring counselor recommendations. Some of them are fine with just teachers, and the colleges will let you know that. And that's why it's important to be organized so you know which schools need a counselor recommendation. If your college does not need a counselor recommendation, we can process the transcript and send that out very quickly. If it does need a counselor recommendation, again, it takes us a while to write those letters because we want to make sure we're really being fair and honest to you and painting you in the best light possible. In order for us to do that, there may be things we don't know about you. So we want you in Naviance, there is a counselor survey. It's in the About Me tab. And in order for us to do that, there's a 7-question survey we want you to answer. We do not need this to be grammatically correct. You can do it in bullet points. You can just do free ramble of thought. Whatever's the best way to answer these questions. We're just looking to make sure we're not missing anything in our counselor letter that we write for you. And you don't need to request us to write a counselor letter. When we send the transcript, we have a way to check on Naviance to see if the written evaluation from a counselor is required or not. All right, so what will be sent by Naviance? Once you request the transcript, within 2 weeks, we will send the transcript. It will have a list of your senior year courses. Students, you should have received transcripts from Dr. Trandor, Mr. DePiero, or Mr. Bryant today, and Ms. Martin, Ms. Vargas, and my students will give you your transcripts tomorrow. Just double check it to make sure it's correct. We send a school profile. Again, that is on our website. Check that, you can see what that is. It's basically a 2-page description of what Cheltenham Community is. It explains our grading system. It explains how many AP classes we have, some average SAT statistics and so forth. Again, the counselor letter of recommendation is required, and that's what the counselor sends, and then teachers will send their letters. We don't have the ability as counselors to send teacher letters. That has to come directly from the teachers. We will send first marking period grades upon your request. So that is usually mid-November. Some colleges, especially if you apply rolling admissions, will be looking for first marking period grades. If they do, just shoot us an email or come into our office and ask that we send them. Mid-year grades, which will be the first semester grades, are sent to every Common App school that you've applied to. That is a requirement for the Common App. If you want a mid-year for a school that's not a Common App school, you'll need to request that from us. And we will go over all this as it gets closer to these dates. More and more schools are moving towards self-reporting. So as I said, we're giving unofficial transcripts to you guys. Some of the more popular schools that are self-reporting: Pittsburgh, Penn State, and Rutgers. What that means is part of the application process, you have to go on to a separate area and enter all of your courses and grades from 9th, 10th, 11th, and then your courses from 12th grade. You submit the grades yourselves, you submit the GPA. We don't send a transcript originally to those schools. Colleges will base their evaluation on you based on what you have entered. And that's why I say Pittsburgh sometimes gets back to students in 2 weeks, because it's already there, it's uploaded and so forth. Please be aware that you cannot cheat this system, because if you are accepted and decide to attend, then they will ask for an official transcript. And if it doesn't match what you entered, you will be questioned and your acceptance could be rescinded. So make sure you're being honest on this, and that's why you need your transcript. Okay. Even if these are schools that you're using, please add them to colleges I'm applying to. All right, scholarships, where can I find them? As we receive them in our office, they are posted in Naviance under scholarships. Some schools have specific scholarships, so you should be Googling University of Pittsburgh scholarships, and it'll take you right to their page. Drexel University scholarships. There are also scholarship searches, FastWeb, College Board, scholarships.com. Most money, though, comes from the school itself. And we do always say, first thing you should be doing is the applications. That's the first thing. Scholarships come after the applications are completed. If there is a scholarship, say, for instance, the Coca-Cola scholarship, that 1 or 2 students across the country are going to win, and yes, it's a big amount of money, but there might be 3 essays and other things you have to upload. It may or may not be worth your time if you are not sure you're going to have the opportunity for that scholarship. Look at some local places, sometimes Kiwanis, sometimes local banks, sometimes parents' employers have scholarship money to offer. So you're always better looking at some local resources as well. Some scholarships are requiring transcripts, so you can email us and we can then arrange to send them as long as you provide us the address. All right, we do offer a few nights in the fall to help you. Our first one is going to be on October 7th at 6:30. It's a Zoom meeting as well. That will be presented by the financial aid officer from Penn State Abington campus. She comes and does this for us as a favor. It is not school specific, so it has nothing to do with Penn State. It's a general overview of financial aid. And look for some flyer and some information on that next week, but mark your calendars for October 7th. And then we are also having a FAFSA completion night this year. This will be in person. I think this is one of our few in-person events that we are offering this year. This will be November 11th at the high school. We are bringing in an officer from FIA, that's the Pennsylvania Higher Education, I forget what the A's stand for, but they are very familiar with FAFSA. You will bring all of your documents, you will bring all of your paperwork, and you will actually sit, you'll bring a computer and you'll sit there, or we can provide one, and fill out the FAFSA and submit the FAFSA that evening. The first date you can submit a FAFSA is October 1st. So this will give, a little bit of time for you to gather your information, give it a try. And if you need help, you'll be able to come in that evening and do that. And we will be having signups for that so we can make sure that we have a large enough space. So look for information about that come October. And what is the FAFSA? The FAFSA stands for Free Application for Federal Student Aid. That is the paperwork, the document that needs to be completed in order to see if you qualify for financial aid, and that will all be covered at the financial aid evening. But what you can do ahead of time is you need an FSA, that stands for Federal Student Aid ID, in order to submit it. Basically, it's an electronic signature, both you and your student need an FSA. So it's always a good idea to do this ahead of time. Just one more thing to get off your checklist, get yourself and your students an ID. Very easy website, fsaid.ed.gov, and fill that in so you're ready to go come October 1st. Keep in mind that it is free to fill out the FAFSA. If somehow you land on a site that says it's going to cost money to do the FAFSA, close that out immediately. That is a scam. You do not pay to fill out the FAFSA. All right, second semester, you need to continue to focus on your academics, avoid the senioritis, and we'll be stressing that with kids. Again, requesting mid-year grades, visiting schools again. Hopefully you've had a chance this summer or this fall to be visiting schools. Oftentimes you'll narrow it down to two or three schools rather. And then in May, you'll go back or April, you go back and visit them again. In order to secure your housing and your spot, you need to send a deposit. Final decisions have to be made by May 1st. Keep in mind, however, that some schools base housing on when you send your deposit in. So if you're sure of a school that you're going to attend, don't wait until May 1st. Send the deposit as quickly as possible. Okay. All right. Any questions? I know I gave you a lot of stuff. This is very overwhelming until you actually get on and play with Naviance. That's what we're going to recommend that you do. So we'll stay on. Dr. Trandor, I know, and Mr. DePiero have been answering questions. Other questions? I see. October 7th is financial aid night. That's a presentation by financial aid officer from Penn State Abington. Oh, I will tell you one thing also. I believe it's Wednesday, October 13th. That is a day that we are giving PSATs to 10th and 11th graders. 12th graders will not be attending school that day, as they will be using that to work on college applications or visiting schools. So if you wanted to put in, take off, go to see a school on October 13th, you could do that without missing school. If you haven't received any emails from me, I'm going to put my email address in the chat. If you can send me your email address and ask me to add it to Naviance, or you can email your own counselor and ask them to add it to Naviance, they can do that. Is there a checklist as opposed to going through the presentation? Yes, so your students will have received, and it was on the email that I sent, a step-by-step list of the steps for the applications, how to apply on Naviance, how to match the Common App, all of that students will have. Is it better for a parent to make their own Naviance account, or should they just use the students? So my feeling is, if you have access to your student's email, great. If you didn't receive my 3 emails today, again, I apologize for the 3. I truly try not to do that. Send an email to your counselor with your email address and we can add you to Naviance. That way you can be getting the information. Otherwise, you can use your students' information to log on and look at the scattergrams and so forth. Yes, the recording is going to be available online. Do recommendations have to come from a teacher? Could they come from an outside coach or a volunteer professional? So I would say that could be a supplemental recommendation. So I would say maybe 1 or 2 from a teacher, and then an outside coach or a volunteer professional would be appropriate. You want to, because they're not on Naviance, you want to make sure that they have an email address or a direct mailing address and mail it directly or send it directly to the college. Did I see some other questions over here? Will counselors have a one-on-one meeting to check with college application process? So right now we're in the process of meeting with students who request us right now. So encourage your students to do that. Come October, if we have not heard from your student, then we will be reaching out to them, yes. When listing a job that takes place during school and summer, how do you recommend the student report hours per week? For example, during the school year, it is 4 hours per week. So I would, the question is, when you're listing a job on Common App, it asks for hours worked per week. So I would maybe split the difference and say, if it was 36 during the week, I might even break that down into 2 parts and do summer and put the 36 hours per week and then do the 4 hours during the school year. But yes, that's a challenging question because often kids work way more than they did during the school year, during a summer. So I would break it down into 2 and 2 different sections on that one. All right, any other questions? Oh, I see some more in the chat. Let's see. So Shaylin, if you could email us that instead of us pulling it from here, because once this closes, we lose the chat. If you could email your counselor, your email address, he or she can then add you to Naviance. And then if a student retakes the SAT, do they submit both scores or just the highest scores? So typically it costs more to submit just the highest score. Colleges truly will use only the highest score. So do not waste the money to send only one score, send them all, and know that colleges will be doing the highest score only. Do you know the turnaround time for fall 2021 SAT scores? It's pretty fast. Usually it's 3 weeks. So typically both the October and the November SAT scores are good for early decision and early actions.
It says on their website October 15th for the fall, for the October test. So even if the student was applying early decision or early action, which is typically a November 1st deadline, they would have a score report to be able to send in plenty of time.
Perfect, thank you. Other questions? Okay, well, if there are no other questions, we can end our night. Oh, I see a question popped up. Hold on. Yes, my email is lcohen@cheltenham.org. And all of the counselors have email addresses that are just their first name and first initial, last name. And so if I'm not your student's counselor and it's a question specific to your student, you should email your student's counselor. Should a student do the November SAT if the October scores are not sufficient? So the problem with that is you're not going to know what the scores are for the October in time to register for the November SAT. So if you're feeling like they haven't prepared or they want to take it more than once, then I would go ahead and have them take it both times. All right, again, this presentation, both the recording and the slides themselves will be posted on the Cheltenham High School's website under the counseling department. Your students will be seeing, if they haven't seen their counselor today, there are 3 of us, myself, Ms. Martin, and Ms. Vargas. Students will meet with us tomorrow during intervention, get a very similar slideshow. We will post that slideshow as well. In addition, students will be handed their transcripts, and there's also, they're emailed a step-by-step list of instructions for how to apply, how they should be applying. I will end this by saying deep breaths. Parents, I know Dr. Trandor just went through it with her daughter, who is a freshman in college. She is still standing. She made it through. I've got 2 of mine through college. They were both not through college, but into college. They were both very different. I was so impressed with my job as a parent with my daughter. She met every deadline. She did what I told her. And then my son hit. and he knew everything. I believe at one point he said to my father, I don't need to listen to her. She doesn't know what she's talking about anyway, where he reminded her that I do this for a living. So every student is different. Parents, we will tell you, this is a very frustrating process in some ways because your kids are scared. They've never left home. This is a big unknown they're going to. So how do kids do that? They shut down. They won't do it. They won't talk about it. So you're going to be frustrated. I cannot tell you how many times I've had a parent call me and say, Lori, can you please meet with my kids? They are not doing anything. Don't tell them I asked you to do this though. So I won't. I'll call your kid down. I'll say, hey, let's talk about the college process. Similarly, I also have kids who will say, Ms. Cohen, my mom is driving me nuts. Can you make her stop? Then I will call you and talk to you and help you calm down. So our role is really to help the kids as best as we can. Some of you have been through this multiple times. This is a piece of cake. Your kids are motivated. They're focused. They know what they want. Others of you, this is your first child. You're going through all the emotions that comes with. Your kids are emotional. They don't know what to do. So we're here for you no matter what phase you're in, no matter how far into or not into this process you are. Please do not be afraid to reach out to us, to ask us for help. That's what we're here for. Okay, thank you everybody for coming. Again, we'll stick around for just a few minutes if anybody has questions. You're welcome, everyone. Glad you could join us tonight and you didn't even have to leave your house. Again, feel free to reach out to us. Any other questions? We're here. Thank you for joining. Oh, I see some chats popped up. Let's see. Oh, thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. Again, I know this can be really overwhelming. Just go step by step, one piece at a time. First thing is to get working on those applications and send in that release of records. If you are not at this process yet and your student's not sure where he or she wants to go or what they're looking at, please, that's a reach out to your counselor sooner than later so we can kind of light a fire under them. We'd be glad to do that for you. That's something we can do. Deadline to retake the SAT. So really, November is pretty much the latest date we recommend for seniors. Some seniors can do it in December if you're not doing any early action or rolling admission schools, but October or November deadline tests are the ones we recommend. If it is accepted ED, does a student get more financial aid? So not necessarily. When you are doing early decision, there are ways that you can, there are calculators that they will provide online that you can look and see what you're going to be getting in terms of financial aid from the school, but not necessarily do you get more aid with early decision. Create your spreadsheets. Yes, do it. All right, last call. Mr. DePiro is not there yet in terms of colleges. He's got a ways to go. He's got a 2-year-old and a 4. Was it G5, Mr. DePiro?
No, 2 and 4. I got to worry about registering for kindergarten before I'm registered.
Exactly, before you do college applications. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to end. Have a great night. And just let us know if we can help you.
See you
Bye.
guys.